Soon enough, I began a bit of genetic experimentation of my own.
You engineered these, David?
Idle hands of the devil's workshop, Captain. You see, Captain, my work has been frustrated by the lack of an essential ingredient. Perfectly sane, I assure you.
Hey guys, what is up? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and today we'll be taking a look at the Proto Morphs, also known as the Planet 4 Xenomorphs, which were a variant of the Xenomorph XX121 species. The Proto Morph was essentially created by David, who had been experimenting with a destructive and metamorphic black liquid that had been developed by the engineers. Using the pathogen as a catalyst on multiple tissue samples harvested from Elizabeth Shaw, the deceased engineers, and the neomorphs that were native to Planet 4, David was able to perfect his designs until he was able to create the first overmorph, containing the all too familiar facehuggers from the Alien series. Two of these were able to implant embryos in two members of the Covenant crew, who later birthed the first versions of the Xenomorph variant. Due to the fact that these were both essentially progenitors and precursors to the Xenomorph XX121, they've been named Protomorphs. Though the Protomorph was identical to the Xenomorph XX121 variant, it possesses notable differences that set it apart. For starters, its limbs were slightly longer, thinner, and appeared to be skinless, which exposed its muscles and blood vessels. Its shoulders and dorsal tubes were also much smaller than its Xenomorph cousins. It also featured a thinner, sleeker tail that ended with a small barb. Much like the Xenomorphs, they begin in their facehugger form, which is relatively the same, though after implantation we start to see noticeable differences between the two, beginning with its chestburster form, which emerges almost fully developed and appears to grow much quicker than the Xenomorphs. Just like the Xenomorphs, the Protos possessed an inner pharyngeal jaw, which was capable of shooting out from the mouth like a piston with sufficient power to smash through bone. They also featured the acidic blood that made the Xenomorphs so hard and problematic to kill, as any injuries made to the creature would subsequently cause its blood to eat through the hull. Although the Protomorphs appeared to possess more or less the same intelligence as the Xenomorph variant, they were evidently more tenacious. For example, the Xenomorphs preferred to stalk and hunt their prey in the dark, choosing to attack when its prey least expected it, while the Protomorph was more aggressive, choosing to chase its prey out in the open. In the film, we see one jumping on board a lander, determined to take out the crew, and although it had been burnt by the ship's thrusters, it continued to relentlessly pursue Daniels. I honestly thought that the Protomorphs were a great addition to the lore, though it's likely that we saw the last of them in Alien Covenant, as I presume the next step for David is to use the colonists to create the first generation of Xenomorphs, with a queen that can continue the development of the species independently. I've had conflicted feelings about this film, but upon rewatching the movie I realised that this conflict stemmed from my anticipation and desire to see a direct continuation of the David and Elizabeth storyline. I mean, Elizabeth Shaw was a complete badass in Prometheus, the strong lead that mirrored Ripley from the original Alien series. With the introduction of the engineers, I was thrilled at the end of the movie, hoping that we would see some type of discourse between Shaw, David, and the engineers in the sequel, but we got nothing of the sort. Is that a bad thing? No, not really, but it did make many people, including myself, feel a little shortchanged. The prequels have been about exploring the origins of how the Xenomorphs came to be. Creation is an important and reoccurring theme in both Prometheus, Alien Covenant, and presumably the final film in the prequel trilogy. The engineers created and recreated life as they saw fit, a result of which was the human race. Though they did seem to despise us, perhaps due to the fact that we stopped worshipping them as gods, like our ancestors had done, and insulted them with the direction we had taken humanity. This is an idea that is alluded to by Weyland himself in his speech about Prometheus, the creator of man. Weyland did the same thing with his androids, creating and recreating life in his image to produce the David line of androids, the first of which was emotional and the closest thing to human that he could achieve. Though Weyland understood that what he had created was incredible, he was still resentful towards David for being able to live forever, while he was approaching his death, a prospect that he feared most.
You seek your creator. I am looking at mine. I will serve you, yet you are human. You will die. I will not.
And just like his father Weyland and his forefathers before him, David shared the same desire to create and recreate. And much like the engineers had planned on wiping out the human race, David repaid the attempted favor in kind. He then subsequently began a journey of discovery and experimentation, which led him to the creation of the Protomorphs and presumably the yet-to-be-seen Xenomorphs. After taking control of the Covenant, its remaining crew and thousands of colonists, David had transmitted the records of his experiments to the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, expressing his intent to continue his experiments using the colonists and the crew to create a queen that would change everything. Although there were a few things missing from Alien Covenant, like a sense of family and friendship among the crew before they all perished, and there were some silly decisions made by the crew, like deciding to walk on an unsurveyed planet without helmets, it ultimately serves as a good prequel, exploring the origins of the titular Xenomorphs that we've grown to love and fear over the decades since the release of the first Alien film in 1979. Well, that's all for today, folks. Thanks to you guys who suggested we take a look at the Protomorphs seen in Alien Covenant. If there's any other content you'd like me to check out, please do not hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.
Hey, we got company! Holy shit. I got eyes on it. It's right